Geek Citadel.
Sir, you'll need to follow me to the station manager's office. This young lady just told me you tried to lure her out of the train station.
Huh? It has been 1 year since the events of Tales of Xillia turned the lives of Jude Mathis and Milla Maxwell upside down. They saved the world from the schism, and tensions are high between the newly linked factions of Rize Maxia and Olympios. Enter Luger Will Kresnik, a man who just failed his test to become an elite agent in the Spurious Corporation. His judge was none other than his own brother, who he currently leeches off of in their small apartment. Luger obtains a steady job, but that's thrown on the back burner after a terrorist invasion takes down the train station in his city. He stumbles on a girl named Elle and hero-turned-scientist Jude Mathis, and they discover that his brother is the conspirator behind the terrorist acts. Now if you think that's bad, he's injured in the destruction and obtains a debt of 20 million gold. To make matters worse, he's labeled as a co-conspirator in the terrorism due to his relation with his brother Julius. Luger, Elle, and Jude must pay down his crippling debt while leading the search to find and capture his brother Julius, or Luger can find himself behind bars instead. I love the idea of the story in Xillia too, because it doesn't make it immediately about saving the world. Sure, Luger has to chase down his brother and for some reason he turns into a Guyver reject, but he's just a down on his luck schmo in the long run. The big addition is the Bioware-esque formula provided to every conversation. Luger doesn't actually speak much in the game, and like most classic RPGs, he's a silent protagonist with a blank stare. Usually in games where the protagonist says nothing, there will be little to no input from the player regarding any of the dialogue. In Xillia 2, the player makes all of the decisions regarding Luger's actions, be it in casual conversations or timing-based action sequences that could change an entire way a scene plays out. Making decisions he can also use it to influence his comrades into gaining an affinity with it. It gives us a lot more of a stake in the world of Xillia 2, as we try to understand where these choices will take us in the saga. Players can also become invested in side missions that lead into different story missions for each of the companions. You can find out how Jude became the leader of the laboratory for Spyrite research, or how Alvin went from a dashing gunslinger to a grizzled fruit merchant. Ultimately, the title was much better if you played the first Tales of Xillia. Luger is a middleman to the conversation of the heroes from the previous games. He gets pulled into their squabbles and camaraderie at will. He's an outsider in his troupe of best friends, and he has to gain acceptance in their group by helping them with their issues. It's a hint of nostalgia that bodes well for a sequel, but newcomers will be completely bewildered by most of it. The story is quite interesting, but the gameplay contains a similar feel to the last game with some enhancements. The Lilium Orb is no more, and in its place is a much simpler system called the Allium Orb. Players will switch between orbs and collect elements to earn enough SP to learn new abilities and arts. Luger and his friends are still able to complete side quests from bulletin boards scattered across the world. They can be completed by finding certain resources, making deliveries, or defeating a select amount of monsters. Some missions require beating gigantic beasts, or using the new fetch system named Kitty Dispatch. Luger and his pals will have to find random cats spread out throughout the world, and use them as tools to gather rare materials. Some items can only be discovered by using the Kitty Dispatch system, and the more cats in the army, the easier it is to find the various materials to complete quests. The final change comes in the form of the debt system that Luger must pay into.
The trigger system was put in place to prevent debtors from trying to make a break for freedom.
Huh? A woman named Nova will appear on screen and ask him to make a payment, and with a certain amount of payments he will receive rewards and unlock train station locations. Gone are the days of using resources to build reputations with shops to upgrade their catalog. Now resources are used to purchase custom items from stores across the world. Last, but not least on the change list, is the ability to dash about after reaching Chapter 6. Luger and his pals are no longer victims to long boring strolls through the vast open worlds of Xillia, and they can still quick travel to places via the world map. Combat in Tales games becomes more refined with each edition. It's action oriented but still focuses on stat based combat. Luger is much different from other Tales protagonists due to his aptitude with 3 weapons at a time. He can swap between dual pistols, dual swords, and a large sledgehammer for laying down his foes. Changing weapons is important in battle, as some enemies are weaker to a certain type than others. 3 different weapon types gives Luger a wider range of arts to perform, but players can still switch between party members if need be. Luger has the ability to transform and shift time to become an incredibly powerful being for a limited period. During this time shift, he will fight alone and perform destructive abilities without limit. Linking with other party members is still an important part of Xillia. Each partner has a specific moveset that will help in battle, and team-up arts are more devastating than single arts. Combat is simple and fun, but also contains a lot of complicated status effects that most players won't even notice. It's a Tales series staple by now, and it's all as fun and frantic as ever. Visually, this title is exactly the same as the original Tales of Xillia, and most of the Tales titles on PS3. It has that cartoon-polished early PS3 look, and doesn't necessarily push the boundaries of the hardware. The environments are a complete retread from the first game. I called Wind of the Deja Vu a bit too early on in the process, and found myself charging through to different zones. The cast from the previous title returns, and they sound fantastic.
Speaking of which, it's amazing how much Jude's changed.
Huh? Me?
Look at your hair! Suddenly you're all trendy.
Exploring your sexy side, are you, Jude? Sexy? Rowan, come on.
Even some of the gripes I had with characters like Milla have been solved in their 1 year later portrayals.
What are you doing?
It's soft to the touch, but what exactly is it?
Don't look at that part! Hey, cut that out!
Despite the repetitious environments, I have some more disappointing news regarding the debt situation. In a way to keep players from becoming misers, when the player reaches a certain cash point in the story, Nova will appear and ask for a debt payment. Luger must pay this regardless of where he is or what he's doing. At first it was an interesting mechanic, but you later learn that it's just an annoying way to keep your pockets from overflowing, and that's awful.
Funny how you have to spend time to save money.
I'm also not in love with the new costume designs for the older characters. Jude has some acceptable attire, but everyone looks like they're trying too hard to be hip. It's not awful or anything, I just didn't really like the clothing design clash. Luger looks to be wearing his cool 1940s detective costume, and everyone else is splashed in random modern clothing. What pisses me off the most is Leia's costume. It is the absolute worst of the bunch.
Leia, if you don't take off that stupid hat, we are gonna have a problem.
Regardless of my gripes with the fashion of the game, I had a great time as a fan of the previous title in the series. The storyline actually touches on something that will be familiar to people who've been reading Marvel's recent New Avengers series. That's as spoiler-filled as I'll be in this review. You can do the research for yourself, or play the game. Tales of Xillia 2 receives a do play if you played the first Xillia title. If you haven't, it is probably better to play the first game or you won't get the same effect. Despite this RPG being a rehash in design, it makes up for it with engrossing characters, choice-filled storyline, and a high-octane combat system. For more Geek Citadel reviews, subscribe to our channel here on YouTube and check us out at geekcitadel.com. We're also in the social network with Twitter, Facebook, and Google+. Thanks for watching, and see you guys next time.